And I'm going to do a little bit of pull back the curtain at the same time, because we do have some guests in the room. And one of the early things that I learned was to always use a mic. We have a member on our national board, Denis Boudreau, who owns a company called Inclusive. And what he works very hard to remind us all is that anytime you're speaking, you're leaving out 20% of the audience, either visually, accessibly, or auditorily. And so it's very tempting. Beverly and I were speaking this week, and some of the rooms were quite small, and speakers weren't picking up the mic. So I can project, hey, I have kids. I can yell a football field and back, no problem. But that's not going to include everyone in the room. And his company name is Inclusive. Inclusion is one of my core values. So even when somebody says, you're loud, you don't need a mic, please, professional speakers use a mic, okay? I will also want to mention that I was inviting Jennifer tonight, and I wanted to give her a couple of faces so that she would recognize people in the room if she got there before I did. Holy smokes, does CAPS Atlantic have a wealth of leadership. So I pointed out that Ravi is a past CAPS Atlantic president, and don't look at me like that, I'm not done yet, and a CAPS national president. Peter Chapman at the end is CAPS Atlantic president and a CAPS national president. Mark Black has served on the board, is a CAPS Atlantic president, and is moving into a national president. We have Faith Buchanan sitting down here, who is a past CAPS Atlantic president. You have a ton of a wealth of talent. We have a special designation in CAPS called a CSP. It's a certified speaking professional. CAPS Atlantic has a number of them, including our MC Tyler and our president, Ravi Tangri, in addition to Mark Black and Beverly Beuermann King. So there's a wealth of knowledge in the room. Please take advantage of it. So the questions I crafted were inclusive of the guests as well. And the first question is simply, what's your business model? So the idea is, who do you speak to? Who hires you? Do you work with a team or on your own? How do you make your money? How many different ways do you make your money? All right, let's start with the first three.
Did you hear that simply part? The question.
So let's start with
simply is.
And you have 1 minute. No, I don't do that. No, I don't do that. So who's the audience you serve? Peter Chapman.
Well, actually, this is the biggest audience I've spoken to for a couple of years now, I think, actually. So my audience would be small to medium-sized food producers and processors across Canada.
And who hires you?
For me, the clients are industry associations, government, institutions who are in the food and beverage value chain, so Farm Credit Canada, banks, people like that.
What is the primary way you deliver your message?
I would be probably now close to 50-50 between in-person and virtual. A lot of virtual, because we're dealing with a lot of small to medium-sized entrepreneurs, and they feel like they're very busy and they can't always leave their business to go to something. So virtual is good for them.
Perfect. That's great. Pass the mic along. Thank you. Please give Peter a round of applause. You're doing well.
That's the best applause I've got for 2 years.
There you go. We aim to please. Beverly, same question. Who do you speak to?
My general audience tends to be internal, so it's the internal market. It would be to leaders and teams within organizations, usually between kind of mid-sized companies is where I focus. I do some association work as far as keynotes or training, but a lot of it has to be is internal to an organization.
And who would be the person in an organization that hires you?
Generally, it's the HR department or the leader of the team. So the leader of the team sometimes comes to me saying, I have some problems. People are off, people are burned out, or to what Faith was saying, sometimes there's just that not so nice person within the team, and how do we possibly deal with them so they're not so toxic?
So I'm going to throw in a question here. When you have a decision maker who decides to bring you in, Do you ever have to go through some red tape, and what's one of the ways around that?
Interesting. So no, for the most part. So my website tends to bring in most of my clients, either that or through repeat. And I don't necessarily have to do a lot of dancing to get to the right person. My newsletter has gone out since 2000, and it's, targeted to HR people. So they see me over and over again, and they see me on LinkedIn. They see me in all of these different places. I've done well over 750 media interviews as well as an expert on mental health and resiliency. So generally when they come to see me, they already know who I am, what I speak about, and we're negotiating at that point.
And what products do you sell, please?
So I have products, and I don't sell very many of them.
That includes your keynotes.
Oh, okay. So I have all my speaking gigs that I do. So I do keynotes, I do training, half day. Lunch and Learns is probably my biggest, so around the 90-minute mark, both virtually and in person. I am blessed still to be doing about 60-40, which is what I said I really wanted, and that seems to be the case right now. And I love both of them equally for different reasons. Those are my main things. I do have a book. I do have e-learning courses that are amazing, but I can't seem to figure out how to sell them. So yeah, I would say that's.
And Alexa Pulses? Interesting product.
So I guess it's a product. I do a 2-minute podcast. I've done it for the last 5 or so, 4, whatever years. It's 2 minutes every morning. So, but I recycle, so I don't do them all like every day that way.
Excellent. Please pass the mic to Mark. Okay, tell us your model. Who do you speak to?
So I primarily speak to associations. I'm primarily the opening or closing keynote at a conference. And then I do some corporate work as well. I started in schools, so I still do. When the school calls and says we have $700, I still say yes most of the time.
Yep.
But I don't pay the bills that way anymore, thankfully.
So I'm glad you brought up that. If you were to guess what the highest gig you ever got, what would it have been?
Okay, so this will sound impressive. Please know that it was a 1 in a million. Probably will never happen again.
Fair enough.
But I got $10,000 in a round trip airfare to Hawaii to do the Hawaii State Realtors Association.
Nice gig.
But I've also spoken to 12 people at, the Rotary Club around the corner. So that's not the typical week. That was the dream gig.
Thank you. And that's a really important part, right? For our guests, we need to know there's a whole gamut in between. Who's the decision maker when you're speaking to associations or you're speaking to corporations? Who hires you?
Yeah, so I wish I lived in the world where there was one person, because it's typically a committee. And in the association world, it's often a new group of people who are doing this for the first time. And they're volunteers, and they don't necessarily know what they're doing. Sometimes they do. And so part of my job I have learned is not just to sell myself, but to sell the value of a professional speaker versus somebody internal that they can get for free or for very little money that is going to maybe be worth what they pay for.
Great answers. Thank you. Please give Mark a round of applause. Hold on to the mic. So my next set of questions are, do you work on your own with a team, and how do you get the primary amount of gigs that you get?
So I work with a team of 2, including myself. So I was a solo entrepreneur for 15 years and finally got convinced to hire somebody to help me. And it's been the greatest blessing in the world. And I think I've now passed her contact into like 4 other people in this room and several other members of CAPS. And Tyler has a CRM because of Jen. And that's to answer the next question. We implemented a marketing system that we learned from David Averin, which is a US speaker who I learned from at a CAPS conference, who did a session about how he markets his business, and we implemented a lot of what he taught us. And so we're constantly doing proactive marketing outreach. And so I do get inbound things, which is wonderful, but those are icing on the cake. We don't count on those. We count on, to use an old metaphor, going out into the woods and hunting and dragging it back home. And so we outreach to the X number of people, and we know that we're going to close a fraction. It's not that we close a ton, but if we contact enough of the right people and do the follow-up and do the nurturing that we're supposed to do, then we know we're going to get the sales.
Excellent. I'm excited now because I'm seeing David Averin at Influence this summer.
There you go.
Beverly, may I ask, who exactly is on your team? Do you work alone or with a team, with a bureau? And who gets your gigs?
That's all the same person.
Might that be you?
That might be me. I take out the garbage, I figure out my tech, I do the booking, I make the flight arrangements. So it is a team of one. There are times, and my mastermind will probably push me towards this more often than not, that I should be hiring somebody else. And so I'm in the process of figuring out how to let go and bring somebody else in, into that. And both of them, so both Tyler and Mark are part of a mastermind that I belong to. And so they're laughing because we've had this conversation many times. What was the other part of the question?
How do you get your gigs?
How do I get my gigs?
Yeah.
So it's a marketing push. You can never kind of let up. And so, through my newsletter, through my podcast, through my website, through, I don't even know what else goes out there, through my LinkedIn posts, as well as anything else that I can possibly think of. It's, as Mark said, I'm going to reach out to as many people as I can, and then eventually it kind of works its way down. I am fortunate enough, though, that my website was one of the very first things I did long before other people had a website. I am that old, and it has a lot of traction and it has a lot of history. So people come to it. I think there's over 500 or 700 articles on there. And so they come for all of the depth of the information that's there as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. Please pass the mic to Peter. Peter, do you have a team? And if so, who and how? And do you work with a bureau? And who gets your gigs?
Yeah, so I do have a person who works with me. She works 12 hours a week and actually works for one of my clients, which is a good relationship because she has a huge amount of expertise in the industry, which I feel is very important. And so she has a super ability to power through the what I kind of call the back end of my business, the technical part of it. So, Peter can sit and talk, but Susan is the person who gets it onto LinkedIn and gets it where it needs to be. So, and the advice I would give you on that is one that I picked up at a CAPS meeting a number of years ago from Joe Sharon, who was one of the founders of CAPS. And he said, hire somebody before you think you can afford to. And it was a great piece of advice because they definitely made a lot of, did you hear that, Beverly? It changed how I can deliver my business. I don't work with bureaus. No, we get our work direct. And I'm going to change it around a little bit. Mark and Beverly talked about marketing, constant marketing. And I appreciate that approach. I found that a very difficult approach for me because I felt like I was being a used car salesman. And so I had to switch that around. And it actually kind of happened for me when the pandemic started, when all of a sudden there was no work. So I had to do something. But the way I feel about it is that I am constantly creating content which I share with people to help them. And when I look at it from that perspective, I feel much more proud of what I'm doing as opposed to saying I'm doing constant marketing. I'm doing more trying to help my market. And trust me, you can share content all the time. They will not go and do it. They need you to do it. But when you share content, you position yourself as an expert. So I kind of twist it around. I'm doing marketing the same as you are. I'm doing LinkedIn. I'm doing a podcast. I'm doing a newsletter every week for the last probably 8 years. Like, it's constant, but I twist it around a little bit, which helps me.
I was going to ask the audience, how many people have ever been to a concert? Right on. As much as we could download it, we could listen to it on Spotify, we could torrent it, whatever the case may be, there is something visceral about hearing the original craftsperson deliver that, right? And our business is no different.
So now that you've made Mark and I feel slimy,
and shamed her into help.
so when I say 500 articles on there, it's for the exact same reason that Peter talked about. It really is about what are the issues that we're hearing and how can I put them out there so that then they think of us top of mind. So thank you. She says sarcastically.
I'm so happy I was third.
Bless his heart.
Uh,
All right. One of the things that Beverly and I talked about this week, both events that I spoke at, and every event I seem to be pitching for, the hot topic is AI. And I'm not an AI speaker. So my two questions are, how do you feel about AI? First of all, talk about opening Pandora's box maybe. And what have you not used it for yet that you might?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think like everybody, I have mixed emotions about it, but my fundamental belief is it's here and it's growing, and you either figure out how to leverage it or you get left behind. One of the things that I talk about in resilience is continuous adaptability, right? And we learned that in the pandemic. Some people adapted and went virtual. Some people didn't. Those who didn't are not necessarily with us anymore in terms of being speakers. I had my worst ever year as a speaker in 2020. I had my best ever year as a speaker in 2021. And I never left the basement of DM New Brunswick, and I spoke all over the world. And it's not because I was brilliant on camera. It's because I was willing to be bad first. So yeah, I think
That's a beautiful soundbite. I was willing to be bad first. No, seriously, that's brilliant.
laptop camera halfway up the nose, bad audio, right? Like, but
Yeah.
but to Beverly's point, how can I serve? You need help right now. You clearly need resilience right now.
Yep.
How can I help? Right? And yeah, so I mean, I'm using it for content generation, not writing the content for me, but definitely for outlines. Right? For brainstorming ideas. How could I rephrase this? How could I say this differently? And then lots of just the business technical things like, hey, you want to rewrite your contract, or do you want to like create a rider for something, or do you want to rewrite your bio, or like things like that? It's been really, really useful. And I'm sure it's just the tip of the iceberg of what I could be doing, but
I spent the early part of this week with Rhonda Scarf, who said that she uses ChatGPT to figure out the formulas for Excel.
Oh, I've done that before. I've done that before. I don't want to
I
spend.
know it's 12. What's the formula for me to get that? I love it.
Oh, I totally agree on that. And I agree with Mark. I have used it for content generation. And so outlines, yes, sometimes. So at the beginning of this year, I committed to writing. I had a newsletter. I told you I've had a newsletter since pretty much day one. And it was quarterly. And it was quarterly for years and years. And then kind of during the pandemic, it was yearly. And then, which is like, I wrote it once or twice through the pandemic. And then I committed this year to writing it weekly. So I went from, what?
Why'd you do that when you're the
I know.
president?
I know. It was a silly timing. And here's the other thing is I called it Wellness Wednesdays, which means it actually has to go out on a Wednesday, which was not well thought of either, because a couple times it's gone out at 11:45 at night just to get it on the Wednesday. Yeah. So, but what I have done is the sections in it. One of it is give me the 5 tips, the 5 strategies out of. So I have all of these articles, and I will each week has a different theme. So I would go to articles on that theme, take that article, plunk it in there, say give me the 5 strategies out of this article, so that I don't have to use the brain power. I have much better things to do. First of all, I said I was going to write it weekly. That wasn't a good decision, but I have other things that I need to get done on those Wednesdays and Mondays and Tuesdays and all those days before. And so whatever I can do to save time for that. It's still my content. It's still pulling it out from there. And so the other thing is I wrote articles back in 2000. That's a long time ago. And so I'm taking those old articles, plunking them back in and saying, okay, I want this to be longer. I need it to have this point in it and this point in it. I want to bring in a new piece of information on this. Make it work. And I'm okay with that. It's still me thinking and writing. And so I know some people are like, that's not, it's cheating. I still think it's me. So those are the things that I've used it for. And on an aside, I had to write terms of reference for an organization, the karate organization. It would have taken me, there was 13 of these committees. I put in what I wanted in this and kind of figured out the formula and then did it for every committee. And it took me a couple of hours instead of a couple of months. So I thought that was a huge saver.
Absolutely. Good. Peter, love it, hate it? How do you use it?
So
different than Beverly and Mark.
yeah, I guess I don't know why I'm up here with you
I'm
people,
sensing
but
a theme.
Yeah, we actually made the commitment we weren't going to use it for content, because I position my business as, the experience that I have in the industry is what the value of the business is. And right or wrong, that's the way that we decided to go at it. I think that we do have to, though. Certainly, I would say we use it on, again, what I'll call kind of the back end of the business with our CRM and with our podcast and all those kind of things. We're definitely using AI, and I think we all are every time we use our phone, for crying out loud. We're using it. But on the content side, I just said, you know what, I've got enough maybe to see me till I'm done, and I'll just keep going at it that way. Now I may run out someday and go, I'm in trouble, and look at it differently. But that's the approach so far.
So on the theme of Wellness Wednesdays, what might you have done in your business, Peter, that either your business or that you saw a colleague do that hurt their business, that we can save new speakers the pain of?
I'm glad you started with me. Can you ask that again?
I'd be happy to.
What do you want me to say?
In the beginning of your speaking business, did you see or experience firsthand someone do something that hurt their business? What would hurt a speaker's business early on?
Okay, well, I can speak from my own personal experience here. How long do we have? So the biggest thing for me was not creating content. I felt that I had this great experience, and all I had to do was tell people what I did and that they would need me. And that is so not the way to go about this. You have to constantly reinforce to people, your expertise and how you can help them, and prove it to them. And the other thing, which for me is just, you have to remember that, they're going to hire you when they need you, not when you want them to hire you. So you have to be relentless 52 weeks of the year, as opposed to just saying, I did this, I'm so great.
Excellent.
Is that okay?
That was wonderful.
You are great.
I'll go with that. I agree with you on that one. So what hurts businesses, and what have I seen? Trying to live up to other people's standard of what it means to be a speaker, and what the business should look like. And so we have very different models up here. And I think sometimes we try to emulate somebody else and try to make it work according to what they have said is important. Do you need a website? Probably yes. Do you need to have really specific topics and not going to be a generalist? Probably yes. Have I seen people not have a website and talk about everything in the world and be successful? Yeah. So there's no kind of rhyme or reason. It's what you want it to be. And I think the biggest mistake is trying to not find your own voice and your own lane and your own way of running your business. How I run it was probably very different than Peter and Mark. Apparently, yes, it's becoming more apparent as we go. But like I said, I never designed my business to be a certain thing as far as working with my family. It always was. So sometimes, when I was working with the Canadian Mental Health Association, I was in the Toronto area, I could do a couple of presentations in a day, drop my kids off at daycare, and I live about 90 minutes northeast of Toronto, so I would drop them off, do the presentations, and I could get back in time to pick them up from daycare. That wasn't necessarily by design. It just happened. When they got older, it happened. My business shrunk. Though I wanted it to be more, I couldn't have possibly handled any more. And then it grew, and it grew not because I said I want it to grow. It grew. So I think we need to be patient. I think we need to figure out who we want to be in this business, and what is the lifestyle that you want with that business.
Thank you.
So I could write a book on all the things I did wrong. I guess I love what you said, because that's one of the things that I've thought about from day one as well, is one of the challenges I had, and I think many people can relate to this, when you come to CAPS, and certainly when you go to convention, is you see somebody who's amazing at what they do, and you go, oh, so that means I have to do that. Except if I try and be Tyler, I just look like a really bad imitation of Tyler. I don't look like me. Right. And so when I started, I remember like, oh, that's a great story that I read online. Let me tell that story in my keynote. And then someone went, "You have a pretty good story. Why don't you tell yours?" I went, "Oh, yeah, that probably makes a lot of sense." So yeah, I love that. And similar to your point, Beverly, it's learn the principles and then you know when to break the rules, right? So there are principles that work, and then there are other things that are guidelines that maybe are not. Some people will tell you never raise your fees until you're super busy, and then that's when you know you raise your fees because you're busier than you want to be, and you go up. And I have no ask. We have 3 kids who are now 16, 13, and 7, and my wife works full time, and I wanted to stay married. So I had no aspiration that some people do to like, I want to do 100 gigs. Good on you. But if I do 100 gigs living in Moncton, it means I'm on a plane 200 or 250 days a year. No thanks. So I raised my fees higher than I should have, sooner than I should have, according to the rules, because then I knew I could make a nice living doing 30 or 40 events a year instead of doing 80 or 90 events a year.
Excellent. All right, my next question is, out of all the things you did right, what might have had the biggest impact?
CRM. And so for anybody, it's customer relationship management is what that means. And basically, I ran my entire business, what I thought was very unsophisticatedly, with an email inbox and an Excel spreadsheet. And then I learned from Tyler that it was at least wasn't like a notepad in his memory. But it's 20 years. So yeah, to a certain degree, do whatever works. But what a CRM did for me is allowed me to keep track of the people who were interested, but not this year. Because we were horrible at going, oh yeah, not this year. But guess what? They have an annual conference or they have a biannual conference. And I was horrible at reaching back out at the right time the next year. And the CRM has helped us to do that in a really effective way.
Good.
Best thing I did was join CAPS.
Why?
But why? Okay, and for all the same things that I talked about earlier about saving on that learning curve. Outside of that, if I can give something different to that, it would be to know my business model and what I was wanting to do. I think, I started with a website, and halfway through the project, the website designer left. And so I had to learn HTML. I had to figure out how to finish this darn thing. No, I couldn't afford to hire somebody at the beginning. The reality is we always say hire somebody, but that's taking food out of 2 little babies' mouths at the time, right? So we do what we can. And so the best thing I did was probably do what I could with what I had the ability to do. And then as I grew, I got my CRM long before Tyler, way longer than Tyler.
I got mine 2 weeks ago,
Just FYI. Yeah. So this is the other thing that happens is you get to know and you get to push the buttons and learn kind of where people's strengths are. But I would say, yeah, so it's and also not being afraid to ask questions was probably the best thing, because you can be a member of CAPS, but if you don't talk to anybody and you don't ask them the right questions, you're not going to get anything from it. So I have an inner circle of people who I know absolutely know my business and I can trust, and I can vent to them and I can ask questions from them, and I can, I can find the answers through that group. And then I have lots of other people who have expertise that I can tap into when I need it. So.
And a whole bunch of people who don't know one lick of what you do.
Yeah, who can still answer those questions, right?
Of course. Yeah. Excellent.
CRM? No. I don't want to copy you guys. I'm always out here on my own. So the most valuable thing for me was really getting incredible clarity around my customers and my consumers. And I'll define those two for you. And I think a lot of times when we have people who want to be professional speakers, they want to talk about what they want to talk about. And I don't think sometimes they spend enough time thinking about, okay, who is in the audience? What are they going to benefit from what I have to share? And then on the other side, as we say, this is professional speaking, and who is going to pay you to do that? And that doesn't mean they need to pay you $10,000 to go to Hawaii, but if it's a business model, what is the transaction? And I'll be honest with you, my first gig was $500 for the chicken farmers of Nova Scotia. So it wasn't an island in the South Pacific I was buying with those fees, right? So But to get super, super clarity around, and when I define consumers and customers for you, consumers are the people in the audience. They're the ones who are consuming the content. They're the small to medium-sized food producers, processors, that kind of thing. They're the ones sitting in the chairs. They're not my customer. They don't hire me to come and speak. The person who hires me to come and speak is the Industry Association, Agriculture, Agri-Food Canada, Farm Credit Canada, whatever it is. So having that clarity around those two, and then being super focused on delivering content and creating content for them.
When Peter went across Canada for his president's tour,
Virtually.
Yeah, he had the toughest gig going, plus of all our presidents. He was kind enough to share a worksheet that gave huge clarity to exactly what he just talked about.
I brought
it. Excellent. So if you're a guest in the room or even a member,
you got to have props, right?
Sitting thinking, that might come up and take a picture of it and put it on the phone. It was incredibly helpful to help identify the blind spots, right?
Yeah. And so we have a process which we use with food producers and food processors, which we call CART. And so we modified it for people in the speaking industry. But CART is consumers, alignment, retail plan, trust. And so that's how we see being successful in the industry. And I think all of you if you want to be an expert and you want to be a thought leader and you want to give somebody a path to get to where you want to take them, a process is a fantastic tool to help them do that.
Yeah, and whether your product's a keynote, a workshop, a retreat, an online course, a podcast, an Alexa post, whatever the case may be, a handout, a book, 27,000 of Tyler's products, they all need to go in a cart. So I loved that methodology, so thank you for that. On a day when we're not tired, hungry, sick, hormonal, or rushed, and that we've had our 8 hours sleep and our Wheaties, it's great. We sit down at our desk, and then the voice, I call mine the bitch in my head. Forgive me for the vernacular. She gets a hold of me sometimes. So my question is, when imposter syndrome talks to you, what exactly does it say? So that, I mean, you're all very tenured speakers. You are, and when I was a brand new speaker, I looked to you and you were rock stars to me, and still are. I compare my inside voice to the outside person that I see you guys being, and those are never going to measure up, right? And so when we're transparent about what, I remember just recently somebody said to me, well, what does the pitch in your head say? And I said, other than I'm fat, I'm ugly, and I'm stupid. And she looked at me horrified. I said, doesn't everybody? So what does your voice say? And then what do you do to overcome it?
Yeah, I think that if we're all honest, we all kind of say, wow, should I be on that stage and should I take that next step? But for me, the thing that I would challenge myself with, I guess, is staying current and staying relevant, because the reality is I worked in the food industry, but I left 15 years ago, and now I tell people how to do it. So I'm always worried about being relevant and current to going into Loblaws or Sobeys today. What Peter did 15 years ago, people don't care, right? So I have stories, but that's when the prices were lower when I was there. So yeah, the bags were bigger and the prices were lower. Yeah. So I guess for me, it's about being current and being relevant. And how do I overcome it? I force myself to do consulting work. Trust me, I'd rather just speak. I love to fly in and give my opinion and leave. But I have to do consulting work to keep myself current. And that means going with clients to meetings with Walmart or Costco or whatever, so that I am then in the midst of it and know exactly what's important to them in 2024, not in 2012.
Nice, thank you.
I don't like the consulting work, but don't tell the consulting clients that, okay?
It won't be on the video.
It's shared here.
Oh, yeah, you're recording this.
Or it's just going to be broadcast everywhere.
Hand up in the air, I swear.
Yeah. Let's see. So I definitely have a voice in my head. This is one of the easiest businesses to get into. It's the hardest one to stay in, and it's the voices in our head that sometimes derail us. I started off with the Canadian Mental Health Association, doing presentations on their behalf as the public educator, and sometimes, the voice in my head says, okay, well, that's all that you're worth, right? Because they were the amount that they would pay as a not-for-profit in a not-for-profit area was, and so when the bravery to say this is what my fee is, I gulp. I'm like, and so Sanjay Nath gave the advice of say your fee and then shut up, and I try that. But my heart is still with not-for-profit. So I say my fee and I wait for them to gulp. And then when they gulp, and if it's a not-for-profit, I change my fees. I mean, it is my business. I get to run my business the way I want it to be run. And so we often talk about fee integrity and all of those kinds of things. I know what my fee base is. That's where I start, and I say it out loud. And then I say, okay, I know that your organization, I know you can't afford it. This is what I can do. And then we start to have a conversation of what that looks like. But the voice in my head says, like, how dare you even ask for that much in the first place, right? So.
Can you share with us some of the things you've gotten in contrast? So instead of money, what have you gotten? What have you negotiated for sometimes?
If it is an organization that has reach, the advertising articles in their news, way back when they had actual paper magazines, but magazines, online, all that kind of stuff. So that is helpful. I think you had talked about a sponsorship booth, that type of thing. So nothing big. I haven't gotten a trip to Hawaii, but I think I need to put that on my list.
Would you like to tell people where you got your gowns from for President's Ball?
Oh, yeah. That had nothing to do with speak. Well, it did have something to do with.
But it leveraged.
Okay, so a couple of things. So I was the spokesperson for Expedia.ca for almost 15 years, and that was really cool to be paid to be on all kinds of TV shows and all kinds of gigs for that kind of stuff. So that was a really interesting piece. And then in doing some of that, I got better at asking for sponsorship. So I've also been part of TD critical illness I did fertility as well. So Clear Blue Easy, I was the spokesperson for Clear Blue Easy. So those were the fun things, but.
That's not what you wore to President's Ball.
No, I'm getting to the President's Ball. So doing all of those things led me to being a little bit braver. And so I started asking for gowns and clothing to wear on stage, and going through to Joseph Ribkoff to be able to get some of that stuff. So that was always fun. So then you get to try on, and almost like a princess thing. So that met my princess needs.
So she got a full wardrobe leveraging her speaking business.
And my reach.
So you're getting your ball gowns, and I get a bag of chips as a sample. That shows the difference between you and me.
I can lend you a ball gown.
And you have a cigarette. All right, Mark.
Yeah, doesn't everybody? I always say if you don't have that voice in your head, then I think you probably are either, I don't know, psychotic or like a malignant narcissist or something. I don't know. Oh, I know. Face doesn't like any of those. I'm sorry. Bad words. Okay. I think most of us who are mentally healthy have that voice. Let me put it that way. Yeah, and so just to clarify, my first gig was for $50 to 300 middle school kids. Incidentally, if you want to learn how to speak, go speak to a room full of middle school kids over and over and over again, and you can hold their attention. You can hold anybody's attention. And how do you overcome that? I think real authentic confidence comes from evidence. So I go back at what is the evidence? What does the evidence show? The evidence shows that people keep booking, so there must be something there that's valuable. I will look at old testimonials on a bad day, right? To say, oh, look at what this other person who you respect thought it was good. So even though I don't believe that today, maybe they do. And yeah, say your fee and shut up. Absolutely do that all the time. And then having that other person. So I now have Jen in my case does that initial conversation with clients where she does what's the budget or what's the fee. She puts that out there. We still have the conversation if they don't have it, and we can negotiate that. But that way, I don't have to be the bad guy to say, if my fee is this and they have a tenth of that, and we say, look, it's just not a fit. I don't have to be the bad guy, which makes me feel better, and I still get to kind of respect and say no to the person that's not a fit.
All right, we're halfway through 2024. What are you excited about in this last half that you're looking to move forward?
Beverly, if you're excited.
We're going to Costa Rica. I'm excited about that. This has been an amazing year. And just as an FYI, this is my very last stop on my presidential tour, which is for me really sad because it has been such an exciting thing to do, is to meet new people, invite new people, see people from different chapters and that kind of stuff. And so for me, I wanted them in the first half of the year because I know it gets, there's summer and then it gets busy and we get ready for convention. So I think I'm going to go into withdrawal. So it'll be exciting to see everybody at convention. And then in my business, I have some really cool things that are just coming up. And I do a lot of repeat business, and I'm able to take what I've done and turn that into other engagements. And so I have some really cool engagements coming up in the fall that are repeats that I'm excited about. One of them, the kind of spin-off was another organization where I did 26 presentations for them. So that's, for me, I'm excited to see if I can beat that record.
Nice. Peter, what are you excited about for the next 6 months?
Yeah, more consulting. Actually, you know what? We're actually doing a really neat consulting project right now, which I actually like, but I won't drag you into that one. What am I excited about? Do you hear something?
No.
Is that a voice in my head?
No.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're going to fire a client.
Rocket science.
Well,
I love what you just said. I don't think anybody heard you, though.
Yeah, I think we're going to fire a client.
And that's on his excitement list. Oh, dear.
Tell us why that's exciting.
It's exciting because I think that client has kind of been a challenge for me, like kind of dragging me down a little bit. And I think, I guess for me, it's to have the courage to do that because it's work that I know I'm going to get, but I'm not sure it's the work that I should be doing. And I think I've found a way to replace the revenue with a different project or things to work on. So as much as I'm a little bit, I say fire. I mean, that's kind of the Loblaw in me coming out. I mean, I think it's time that I don't do work for them anymore. And
may I ask in that case, Gordon?
Can I add something to that? I'll let you finish off what you were going to say for that. But I do think it's really important because when we're not the right fit, either we're not the right fit for them or they're not the right fit for us, we need to recognize that. In my career, I was running the education for the Canadian Mental Health Association, and my own business was taking off, and I had 2 babies. A new boss came into the Canadian Mental Health Association, and they sucked the joy right from me. I mean, I'd drive into the parking lot, and I could just feel my whole body go into shutdown mode. And so I did fire them. I said I was done. It was 70% of my business that I just said goodbye to. But at a time when I had 2 babies and we were, trying to make mortgage payments and all those kinds of things. But
did you have something to replace it?
I did not. No, it was a complete unknown, starting again, growing the business. But it freed up so much mental energy that I could then focus in on those other things, and it wasn't sucking the life out of me. So good point. You have other things to say?
Do I?
I have one question.
Sorry.
That is, when you're working in your element, when you are just lit up, on fire, excited, what are you doing?
On a panel at a CAPS meeting? Yeah, so for me, I don't think anybody here has ever seen me do my thing. So when I come to speak at an event, I have a shopping cart that I bring with me. I take it on the airplane, and I have small. We don't need that. I have small shopping carts. So when I am hitting my stride, people come up to me and go, "Oh, you're the guy with the shopping cart." And our process is called that and all the rest of it. So we really work hard to try to kind of tie it all together. And when people come up and say that to me, I go, okay, that's success. We've resonated with that person. They know who I am. They know what I can do. And whether they choose to hire me or not, that's their choice. But we've done everything we could to resonate with them.
That deserves a round of applause. Halfway through, you've made a transition, huge transition already. What's left for this year?
I mean, I've finally getting my book that I released last year turned into a course, and it's almost ready. So that's exciting because it's been a long time coming.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We have room for 2 questions from the floor. Do we have anybody who has a question? And if you do, I'll ask you to raise your hand because I'll share my mic. Any questions? Yeah, you bet, Jesse. Hold on.
You should have worn your running shoes.
Thank you so much. My question was, what books or lessons or specific stories have you found the most impactful to your journey doing the work that you do? I just recently finished reading 4 Agreements. So I was like, oh, I wish I known this earlier. So I'm like, I must not be the only one wondering. I'm so glad I read this. This is the book. This is one of the things, principles I really try to practice.
Awesome question.
Mark's willing to take the
Yeah. Okay. You know what? It's not sexy, but it has totally transformed my business. And the book is called Profit First. The guy's there. You go. The guy's name is Mike McAllowitz, but he's smart enough to know that people can't spell his name. So if you look up MikeMotorbike.com, you'll find him. And the whole idea was because I started my business at 25 years old, speaking in schools. I knew, and I was a liberal arts university grad. I knew nothing about business. And so it was years of just like, as long as I can pay the bills, then I guess I have a business. And then I read this book and went, oh, I don't have a business, I own a job. Because my business itself doesn't actually make any money. We just take whatever we make and it goes into the home bank account and we pay bills with it. And this guy introduced me to this thing called profit. Your business is supposed to have that. Who knew? And he really, and at that time, I didn't have any, right? Like we just spent whatever we made. So well, how does that work? And he walks you through, and I literally started with 1% of every check that came in went into this little account that was just called profit. And he said, if all you do at the end of the month is go to dinner for $40, but it was profit from your business, it's going to feel amazing. And 4 or 5 years later, we took a family all-inclusive vacation from the profit of the business, which felt much better than just writing the check out of the personal bank account, right? So yeah, that totally changed the fine. Exactly, and I would say that we as a family survived COVID without me getting a quote unquote real job because we had implemented that book years before.
Nice, great. Either of you have an answer?
Yeah. I wouldn't read that book. I'm joking. Yeah, so I think that there's a number of different books out there that if you want to learn sort of the business of speaking and that kind of thing, whether it's Jane Atkinson's The Wealthy Speaker, there's Paid to Speak is one I think that came out of NSA. There was one from the UK as well. The UK Professional Speakers Association collaborated on a book. So I think there's some out there if you're interested in that. But what I would say, and I don't care whether you've been doing this for 20 years or you're new to it, I go back to something that the person who was the president of Loblaw used to say when we would have our quarterly meetings with him, and he was a very intimidating person. He used to say the grocery industry is 5% strategy and 95% execution. You better get out and get it done. And that always sort of resonated with, well, I was scared to death of him, but it resonated with me because I think a lot of us, because we are the type of people who want to keep learning and educating, which is great. I'm looking at you. But I'm not saying you don't do this, but we also have to get the work done. And that's been a lesson for me to get the work done.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a particular book that I would recommend for that. But I do agree with Peter. I mean, I've been doing this since 1995, and I still feel like I'm at the baby stages of my business. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, there's always something. As soon as your website's done, you're working on the next version of the website. As soon as your speaker reel is done, you're working on the next version of your speaking reel. So I constantly feel like I'm always learning something. But I think the big thing is to pick and choose what you want to learn. It's very hard sometimes to go to convention because we often say for the first time, it feels like you're drinking from a fire hose. And I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this, and oh my gosh, and I have more to-dos than I could possibly ever get done. It's not a matter of more knowledge, it's implementation. What do I need to do right now that's going to take me that extra little bit further? What is it now that I can tweak? And so I never sit back and go, I've made it, I'm done, because as soon as that, I'm irrelevant and I'm out the door.
Does David Avron have a book?
He has
I
a
know
couple
he
of
does.
books, but they're customer services. They're his expertise. They're not books
Okay.
about speaking. As far as I know, he doesn't have one about speaking. But
Okay.
Oh, actually,
And the other one,
oh.
yeah?
I'm going to pass this back to you. There's one that you always mention in our mastermind that you follow.
Peter Chapman is brilliant. Yeah.
So while you're figuring that out, I'll mention Lois Creamer, Book More Business, is a great book that helped me get on track with some things.
It's David Avron, I thought.
And
Okay,
they'll
maybe
be
not. That's somebody else.
John, you have your hand up. What's your question, please?
I'm not guy like Tyler who thinks I'm not enough. First of all, a book called Traction. Really good one. Small business book. How to grow your small business. So,
Have you read it yet?
well, I have. I don't know if that's what you're thinking.
Nope, but that's a good one too.
I guess my question is, I probably shouldn't speak like this, but I think there's a lot of us in this room are pretty successful in what we've done thus far. I personally don't consider myself a speaker, although Tyler does. What's the thing that we could do tomorrow that would get us one step closer to that?
You stole my very last question. Great question, John. Thank you. What's one thing, if you could make one step tomorrow, what would have the biggest impact on the business?
Join cabs.
We're like a walking commercial, aren't we? I think you've already kind of identified that. You're already successful. What got you there? And that would be the biggest introspection. Like, what was the thing that got you the success already? Whether you are speaking or coaching or consulting or however you're running your business, what is it that your customer connects to and that message? And so what are you known for? And then don't lose that essence. And so how can you enhance it and not get distracted by all of the shiny things that are, that we can talk about, including a CRM. But when you know, if you've had the success, some of you are just starting out and you haven't quite figured out your lane and all that. But if you already have success, figure out what has got you there and do more of it. And find more of those people. Instead of trying to find everybody to speak through, who are those people who connect to you the most, and find more of those people.
So what do you mean when you say you've been successful?
So I bought a business last year, and our business is thriving. We do a lot of leadership development and executive coaching in businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the next steps for me is to do more speaking as one element to help build our brand. So if I was to specifically focus on
what would get me the speaking part to add to our brand? What could I do?
Okay, so you have a successful leadership training business, and you want to understand how speaking can help reinforce that brand. I guess my perspective would be like super clear on who the target market is, and then you can't tell them what you've done. You need to tell them how you're going to help them, and that will help your brand.
There are a lot of people who have that same kind of model where they are coaches, consultants, and they're using speaking to feed their business. And it's making sure that you're congruent in the messaging and targeting that message. So whatever you do in what makes you unique, because there's so many, I mean, in this room, I think probably 80% of the people in the room are probably a leadership speaker of some sort. So what is unique? Maybe you have a process, maybe you have a model, maybe you have something specific that you do. Make sure that that's part of your speaking as well, and become known for that, not known for don't try to be like everything for everybody. Whatever is going to directly feed that business, make sure you're really specific with it.
In the one sentence that I forget where I learned this, CAPS meeting, I'm sure, that helped with that whole idea, and I think it applies to everybody. I help blank, specific group of people, to blank, what's the result that they get, so they can do this. If you can fill in those 3 blanks, and it's super easy to say, it's a lot harder to do. But if you know who you help to do what, so they can what, that's your positioning, that's your branding, that's your...
I got another thing for you to do. I think you need to be able to tell me in 30 seconds what you're going to do for me. So when I introduced myself tonight, I said, for small to medium-sized food processors, I help them get their product on the shelf and in the shopping cart. It only took me about 10 years to figure out how to say that. I would start with, I worked with Loblaw companies for 20 years, and I did this, and I did that, and I did this, and I'd be like, okay, you need to hire me now because I'm, great. And that didn't work very well. No, I'm joking. But so figure out that elevator pitch or whatever you want to call it, but you got 30 seconds to tell me what you're going to do. And not what you did, what you're going to do.
For them.
Yeah.
Excellent. Our time has come to the end. I thank you very, very, very much for listening. I thank our experts on the panel. And here's what I'd invite you to do. You've invested your evening tonight, and they've invested some of their expertise, having shared some of their journey. I love to ask participants, what's your WOW? So WOW is an acronym, and it stands for Within 1 Week. And it's based on the idea of overcoming the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve is we forget stuff if we don't do something right away. So of everything that our experts shared this week, tonight, what's one thing you can do within 1 week that would move the needle just a little bit further? Anybody want to start us off super quick? Jennifer?
Creating content.
Excellent.
Good.
Anybody else?
I'll just say just the same, creating content.
Creating content, good. Anybody else? Jesse?
I thought it was awkward eye contact while we're here.
It was. I don't miss much.
I think for me, it's having more confidence in your story.
Okay,
Good. Creating
Yeah.
your story.
nice.
Filling out the blanks.
Filling
What's
out-
with what's results, yes.
Good. Anybody else? John?
It's refining. I've been trying to refine, but it's refining the 30 seconds.
Okay, good.
I love the shopping cart and your form that, beautiful.
Yeah, a model is very helpful. Jennifer?
Oh, me.
Yes.
Sorry. I got my website done.
Excellent, good. Faith?
Everything.
Fair enough.
I don't think you can do it all in 1 week, though, Faith.
Sean?
Faith,
Oh, sorry, did you have something? I
Faith was gonna say
missed what
something.
I apologize. Please. Yeah, please. Grab the mic though, so it ends up on the recording.
That voice in our head is our best friend, because that voice wants us to be safe. And as soon as you turn to that voice and say, thank you for wanting need to be safe, it calms right down.
Nice tip. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, that's my takeaway. Sean?
For me, I don't think it was said, but it came to me while I was here that for years in wanting to speak, I was trying to figure out how speaking could be a part of my business, which is marketing, and I realized it doesn't have to be. Right? So I've been through so many life experiences and what I've learned there that I can build a business in the speaking side. It doesn't have to then transition into a marketing type of life. So
Good.
Excellent.
Just hearing those stories.
That sounds like an aha to me. That's great.
Yes.
Awesome. Anybody else who I didn't name? Yeah, please tell me your first name.
Oh, Martina.
Hi, Martina. It's nice to meet you.
I think to add to that, I learned from my life that it's important to ask your, I call it a saboteur, questions. And like interview, why are you showing up? And what are you trying to do? So that's a little exercise I do.
Excellent. And what you have?
And so for me, it's sharing, releasing content, because I just have so much that I'm like, yeah, not right now, or I don't know, now sometime. So that's a big part of it, and just getting back into crafting my speaker profiles and my presentation.
Nice. Nice
Can
to
I-
meet you. Please.
So write, and if you don't like writing, speak into something that will translate it for you. Like just get content and get it out there. Get those ideas out of here and get them out to people to see.
I'm going to share that Robbie shared with me. He flew home from the multi-year mastermind, and Tyler drove home. And in the 16 hours, he wrote an audiobook. Tyler did. Robbie shared it from me, from convention. There you go. Thank you. Karen, do you have a wow?
Content. Work more on getting my content out in all places, but also become more confident in saying my feed and shutting up.
Here.
Last week I booked the best paid gig I've gotten so far.
Woo-hoo!
Yes.
I was like, yeah.
That's okay.
It didn't even blank at the price, so my base price just went up.
Yep.
Well done. That is worth celebrating. Good. Thank you for sharing with us. Christy, one wow?
Oh gosh. I have a side gig aside from, my real job that I just quit. And it was the first time that I actually shared in my side content creation side hustle that I actually left my job, obviously for privacy reasons forever I didn't share that. So it was my first time kind of opening that page, and I think a lot of us, well, for me, I felt deeply uncomfortable. Obviously the narrative of the police for the last couple years has been pretty ick. You as one person can only connect so much, and I think that for me, I didn't want to ever associate with that story. I associate with my own personal story, but I didn't really want to be tied to that. So I think this has been really encouraging, and just sort of owning a story and not feeling icky about it for whatever reason, because you can, I don't even know where I'm going with this necessarily either, but anyways, I shared about that. I kid you not, I cannot even get through the fucking emails. I have thousands of people who have emailed me to say that this story meant something. So it's I can't. Yeah. So my wow is, why am I?
Don't fight it.
No. So this is it. Where it's I guess my wow from this is lean in, and I think it's been really interesting to hear everyone's different niche and industry, and that you've just owned that and you lean into it, and
It is your story.
Yeah,
It's only your story, and so people need to hear it.
yeah.
Thank you all for sharing your wows. Thank you to our experts for sharing their expertise, and thank you, Cats Atlantic, for having me. I appreciate
Awesome.
it.